New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
New Thought Media Network is excited to present Divine Science Everywhere, Fridays at 2 p.m. Mountain Time and 4 p.m. Eastern. Come explore a modern experience of divine science. With Reverend Joy Fletcher, Reverend Jeff Radcliff, and Bishop Durrell Watkins. Join us as we open our eyes to divine science everywhere we look. Fridays on New Thought Media Network.
Welcome to Divine Science Everywhere. Divine Science Everywhere features divine science ministers and New Thought guests as we talk about the principles and practice of divine science. I am Reverend Joy Fletcher, and I'm so happy that you're with us today. I happen to be the president of the Divine Science Ministers Association and a lifetime member of the International New Thought Alliance and an honorary member of Anton. Those are some of the ways that I express my ministry.
And hi, I'm Reverend Jeff Radcliff, and most of you know that I don't show up here in a t-shirt, but today Spirit told me that somebody needed this message. You are enough. So if this is for you, you know that we've got your back. You will find me stirring up trouble on the board of directors of the Divine Science Federation International, as well as the Divine Science Ministers Association, and I do like to stir it up a little bit. You also find me on Facebook, Giatti Ministries. Giatti stands for God is all there is, so just spell it out, Giati, and you'll find me because I'm the only one there.
Hi, everyone. I'm Durrell Watkins. I'm the senior minister of the Sunshine Cathedral. That's sunshinecathedral.org here in Fort Lauderdale. I am a life member of the International New Thought Alliance, and it's at INTA that I discovered divine science. I'd sort of known about it, read this and that, knew about a school or two, but I didn't feel drawn to it and take the plunge until I discovered it at INTA. And now, hundreds of years later, I am the president of the Divine Science Federation International. I'm in my fifth year as president. Way back when I was vice president, but now I'm the president in my penultimate year in that office. And I'm also a bishop in the Global Justice Institute. I'm on the Council of Bishops for that Global Justice Institute. And I'm also one of the co-hosts of a show on the Happening Out television network called the Queer God Squad. And of course, one of the co-hosts here at Divine Science Everywhere. Divine Science really is my life philosophy, which is basically that there is one presence, one power. There is an omnipresence, and we're all part of it. Not only is it with us, but it is us, expressing in, through, and as us. And that's, as Nona Brooks says, we always go back to our basis, which is omnipresence. So that's my story, that's my ministry, that's my life, that's my career. It's all divine science, which of course is God everywhere. We start each week with Reverend Joy leading us in a centering moment. It's very important because sometimes people get so busy or so anxious or, they're so tied to a schedule, they forget that just a moment of silence, a moment of reflection, a moment going inward can just make such a difference. It can be so healing. It can be so centering. It can be what is meant by the word communion. It's where we remember our union with, communion with the divine. And Reverend Joy leads us in that every week, as she's going to do just now.
Thank you. Well, today I'd like to start with a reading from the book Find and Use Your Inner Power, first published in 1937, and it is by Emmett Fox, who also was a divine science minister. I see the angel of God in every change. This is an affirmation that you should have written inside your pocketbook and also in some prominent place at your home where you often see it. It is one of the keys of a harmonious and progressive life. Especially in these critical times, it will stand out in your life like a lighthouse in a stormy sea. Change is the law of growth, and growth is the law of life. Without change, there can be no growth, and without continual growth, life fades out of any form, leaving what we call death. There is no greater mistake than to be afraid of change, and yet many people dread it and cling to what is customary and familiar. To be afraid of change is to doubt the providence of God. It is an unintelligent fear of the unknown. If it were not for the blessing of change, men would still be primitive savages living in caves, and you yourself would still be a child mentally and physically. Would you not? Welcome every change that comes to any phase of your life. Insist that it's going to turn out for the better. See the angel of God in it, and that angel will make all things new. So let us take a slow, deep breath together and open to the divine rhythm of life, moving through us, for us, as us. In divine science, we affirm that God is the changeless presence within all change. The spirit of infinite life is forever creating, renewing, and expressing through every form of existence. So, though outer circumstances may shift like waves upon the sea, the underlying current of good never ceases. Every change we meet, wanted or not, is an invitation to inner transformation. Beneath the surface of uncertainty, the Christ light within us whispers, grow, unfold, become. Change is not punishment. It is progress revealing itself as wisdom, prosperity, and love. Consider the butterfly that must outgrow the cocoon, the seed that must break open to become a tree, or the tide that must rise and fall to sustain the balance of the oceans. In every form of life, growth and transformation are evidence of God's eternal activity, the angel of change at work. So let us remember to not resist the very flow of divine life seeking to bless us through change. When we see the angel of God in every change, as Emmett Fox teaches, our perception shifts. We begin to experience and recognize divine order where there was once fear. We trust that each ending prepares the way for a greater beginning. Change often brings with it emotion, a mix of emotions, loss, anticipation, hope, or maybe even uncertainty. And yet, let us remember that beneath it all, there is a steady truth. Omnipresence is constantly with us, moving and operating through us, as us, for us. The same presence that was with us in the beginning remains with us now and will continue forevermore. Every change carries with it the potential for renewal of consciousness. While the outer forms of our lives, our work, relationships, homes, and even our beliefs may shift and evolve, the essence of who we are remains divine, whole, and perfect. So through faith, we learn to bless what was, bless what is, and open to what is becoming. Every turning point, every shift, every threshold is love, expressing as evolution. Let us affirm, I welcome change as the movement of God in my life. I see the angel of divine order guiding me into new expressions of wisdom, abundance, and love. So let us rest in gratitude for the angel of change, the divine activity of renewal that moves and operates for our highest good. And so it is. And so it is.
And so it is. Amen. Thank you, Reverend Joel. We do that every week. It's one of the best 6, 8, 10, 12 minutes of the week for me. So thank you for always leading us in that direction. And then following, of course, our moments of reflection, we remember some of our New Thought luminaries, or sometimes they're New Thought adjacent, but truth is truth, no matter what label you put on it. So today I want us to remember Ursula Gestefeld. She was born in the mid-1800s, 1845. She made her transition in 1921. She was a student of Mary Baker Eddy, and she and Eddy sort of had a falling out. They weren't the only two. Mrs. Eddy was a very strong personality, and not everyone stayed with her for the whole journey. But they learned a lot from her, and they went on to do other things. Mrs. Gestefeld became an independent teacher of spiritual healing. Of course, in fact, Emma Curtis Hopkins had been a student of Mrs. Eddy. And then, of course, she went on to start her seminary in Chicago. And then she was sort of a teacher or mentor for a lot of the New Thought pioneers, including the Fillmores and a Mrs. Bingham, who would later teach the Brooks sisters, Annie Ricks Millis. And then towards the end of her career, she even had a mentoring relationship with Ernest Holmes. And so I don't know that Gestefeld ever encountered Emma, but she herself was a student and co-worker with Mary Baker Eddy. She became an independent teacher of spiritual healing. And what I love about her most, she wrote at least one book that I'm aware of, and did her teaching, but she wrote a treatment. And that treatment for releasing the past, I think it was motivated by her conflicted relationship with Mrs. Eddy, but it's been so helpful to me in lots of areas of my life over the decades. And her treatment included, it was a longer treatment, but it included these words: I have no sorrow, no regret.
Lily Rose,
Filled with praise and rejoicing. Nothing that anyone can say of me can hurt me or turn me aside. I press forward steadily with no thought of blame for them who judge me according to the dead past. All malice, hatred, and enmity are left with the past. I bow only to love. I feel only love for every human being. I begin to know God, for God is love. One more time, in case there's something in your life, somebody in your life, maybe even your own self. Maybe you're having trouble forgiving yourself for something, but it's already done. It's over, right? Like we're moving into something new. One more time, these words from this beautiful treatment by Ursula Gestefield. I have no sorrow, no regrets. I am filled with praise and rejoicing. Nothing that anyone can say of me can hurt me or turn me aside. I press forward steadily with no thought of blame for them who judge me according to the dead past. All malice, hatred, and enmity are left with the past. I bow only to love. I feel only love for every human being. I begin to know God, for God is love. And so it is. The next person I want to share with you is not officially from the New Thought tradition, and yet his systematic theology has led a lot of people, I believe, into New Thought understandings, whether they claim the title or not, whether they ever heard of the title or not. And that person is Protestant theologian Paul Tillich, maybe the most influential Protestant theologian of the 20th century. He was born in 1886. He made his transition in 1965. He taught at some prominent theological institutions such as the University of Chicago and Union Theological Seminary, my alma mater. Paul Tillich blended contemporary biblical scholarship, existential philosophy, ontology, which is the study of being, and that's very important, and psychological insights, sounds very New Thought already, into articulate. He did all of that and blended that to articulate a profound understanding of God. It sounds very familiar to us New Thoughters, or some people will say New Thinkers, and yet this was earth-shattering for Protestant Christians. He denied the existence of God in whom he deeply believed. Hear that. Right. He denied the existence of the God in whom he deeply believed. That is, he denied God was a being, even a supreme one, but instead was the ground of being. God does not exist, he said. Rather, God is existence. A thing that exists is a thing apart from us. A thing that exists has a shelf life. A thing that exists has a beginning and an end, so God can't exist. But God is existence. Charles Fillmore said, God is pure being, not a being, but pure being. And he was sort of a contemporary, really, lived about the same time as Paul Tillich. I think they would have agreed. Paul Tillich said, God is the power to be, not a being, but being itself, the ground of being, the power to be. And he insisted that theological language and symbols were symbolic, the allegorical, metaphysical, we might say. So the minute we try to overly literalize the symbol, we lose the meaning of the symbol. This was a Lutheran, y'all. This was a Protestant 20th century theologian. He could have been a religious scientist, divine scientist, unity person, agape, a home of truth, church of truth. He did from the Protestant tradition, was sort of affirming and sharing the truth we've been teaching since the mid-19th century. Another one I want to share with you is Father Thomas Keating. He only made his transition in 2018. He was born in 1923, made his transition in 2018. He was Roman Catholic, and he was one of the pioneers and leaders of the centering prayer movement. Now, centering prayer is basically silence, and that's huge in divine science. We go into the silence. We may or may not make affirmations. We may or may not make denials. The Emmett Fox method of prayer, the golden key method, is where you just focus on the divine. You don't even focus on the problem. You just focus on the divine, which is perfection. And while you're focusing on the good, then whatever isn't good, which isn't really real, works itself out, sorts itself out to the side, goes into the nothingness from which it came. And so centering prayer is just being in the presence, being aware, being consciousness, being aware of the divine presence in which we live and move and have our being. That one life that we all share, that one power, that one presence that expresses individually as each of us. So Father Thomas Keating, this Roman Catholics and Episcopalians, they call this mysticism. We call it New Thought. So one of the pioneers and leaders of that centering prayer movement, Father Thomas Keating, he went to Yale and to Fordham. He worked to recover and promote contemplative traditions within Christianity, including Lectio Divina, and centering prayer. Lectio Divina is where you pray sacred texts, basically using them as what? Affirmations. And centering prayer, just being in the silence, being in the presence, practicing the presence of God. And so I don't think he knew he was New Thought, but I think New Thought knows he was speaking our language, singing our song. And finally, we always end with a divine scientist. And the divine scientist du jour is Dr. Lucille Frederick, born in 1902, made her transition in 1994. She was ordained by Erwin Gregg himself, who was ordained, of course, by Nona Brooks. He was one of the founders of the Divine Science Federation that I get to be part of today. Lucille Frederick, I believe she also was the author of the spiritual psychology course used for decades in training divine science ministers. She was awarded the Doctor of Divine Science degree in 1958, and for over 20 years, she was the director of the Divine Science Educational Center in Denver, known by various names over the years, including the Divine Science College and eventually the Brooks Divinity School. So those are our New Thought luminaries for today. I'm always so excited to share about them. We're going to have a brief commercial break, and then when we come back, we're going to learn about and learn from Reverend Alley. But first, we are Divine Science Everywhere, and this is the New Thought Media Network.
That was quick. It always takes me by surprise because I'm always got like 15 windows open while I'm trying to get everything ready to go. So I'm excited to do this. Reverend Jeff here with my colleagues, Reverend Joy Fletcher and Bishop Durrell Watkins, and we are excited to have as our special guest Reverend Dr. Allison J. Benjamin. She has been a pioneering voice in the field of personal and spiritual transformation. She is an intuitive guide. She's a transformation coach. She's an artist. She helps others awaken to their true nature, heal from trauma and loss, and live with greater authenticity, creativity, and joy. She and her husband founded the Satya Center for Conscious Living. She is ordained through the Emerson Theological Institute, and she has served the New Thought movement in a lot of different ways. She has been president of the affiliated New Thought Network. She is a board member of the Big Sky Retreat, and she is also a spiritual mentor to communities across the country. She also has not one, but two shows on New Thought Media Network. She is the host of Realizing Wholeness and Growing Edge Live. So you will find her on New Thought Media Network as well. And we'll talk to her about when those shows air in a little while. She's also got an art series, Wings Appeared. She brings visual life to her mission of healing and empowerment. And she has workshops, talks, and art and soul retreats built all around this to invite participants to access their own innate wisdom and creative essence. And when she's not teaching or painting, and it seems like that would take up most of her time, well, she also meditates, hikes, and enjoys time with her husband, children, and grandchildren near Salt Lake City, Utah. Look for AllisonJBenjamin.com so that you can learn a lot more about Dr. Allison. Dr. Allison, thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm just so blessed and honored to be here and excited to see what wants to happen.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you the same question I ask everybody. Some are born into it. Some of us find it through other ways. How did you come to New Thought?
Well, I came to New Thought, gosh, in my 20s. I'm 63 now, so it's been a while. And I wasn't really religious. I grew up in England. And when I was little, there was a sort of a blend of church and school. So we would sing hymns and do prayers and such. And I always wondered, everyone seems to get this religious thing, and I wasn't really feeling it like I saw other people feel it. I had an early experience when I was 5 years old. I didn't know what it was at the time, but today I would call it a oneness experience, a mystical experience where I felt the presence. And it happened when I was really in a fearful place. I was 5 years old and my mother had left. And so I was living with my dad, and my mother moved to this country. And it was very scary to be without her and her being so far away. And I think that fear and that anxiety caused me to connect with the divine, my higher self, with God. And there were no words. It was more of a visual experience and a feeling, and almost like a relief. I felt everything's going to be okay. Even though I didn't hear anything, I felt it was sort of a divine touch or blessing. And so that has made me feel very connected to life, to being here. Not maybe in the way I saw other people doing religions, but there was something that I felt connected to, and that's just expanded over my years. But as far as science of mind goes, I was living in Southern California, and I was going through a divorce. I had three young children, and I was looking, I was seeking, I was searching. And my mother-in-law had given me a book, Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life. And I absolutely loved that book. Then there was this series of coincidences, and there was a big swap meet in the area at a local drive-in. And people would come and it was like a big giant garage sale. And I came across this woman that had this big tarp of books and crystals and all kinds of woo-woo stuff. And I hadn't yet dove into that. So I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? I felt I was like Alice in Wonderland, like looking through the looking glass. And I just was picking up all these books and Louise Hay book there. And the woman said to me that was, all of this was her stuff. She said, well, there's a church close by that teaches this kind of stuff. And I had also been going to Al-Anon at the time. And so there's a spiritual dimension to the 12-step program too, 12-step programs. And so with the Al-Anon and exploring spirituality as an adult, and then being guided to this religious science church in Vista, California, I went to the first service, and my kids were with me, left them in the Sunday school, and went into the sanctuary by myself. It was full. It was a larger church. And the people that was singing, and I was just in this altered state, and I hadn't had any woo-woo experience since I was 5. And so as I'm sitting there, the background of the stage was such that I could see all this color and all of the, like it felt like I had, seeing something, and I rubbed my eyes. And every time someone would sing, there would be all of this color. And had goosebumps, and I just didn't know what was going on. But, being English and being self-contained, I just sat there like nothing was going on. But inside I was freaking out. And then the ministers got up and started doing, what I know now to be an invocation and doing prayer and giving a talk. I was crying. I felt I'd come home, like so many people do when they walk through the doors of a New Thought center, a spiritual center. They hear something that their soul had been waiting to hear. And I did, and that was Reverend Brian and Sheila Anderson. And so that was the start of my journey. I then moved to Big Bear Lake, which is also in Southern California. And I immediately looked for another New Thought church. And there was one in the mountains. There was maybe like 6 people that attended. And it was a small, intimate group. Well, that became my home. And that's where I started my practitioner training years later. It's where I met my husband, my mother-in-law, both practitioners. And we at the time were UCORS, United Church of Religious Science. And somewhere along the line, we hired a affiliated New Thought Network minister, Anton, Reverend Jean Sweet. And she's the one that I started taking practitioner training. And gosh, I've been all in ever since. That was in 96, I think. And so I've been a member of Anton, the affiliated New Thought Network, since 96. And in 03, we as a family moved to Utah. And there was a CSL in Salt Lake City, which was quite close to us. And we would attend there, but it was a considerable drive. It was about an hour. And so I started thinking about maybe I could start something here in Ogden, Utah. And I started a Science of Mind study group, a metaphysical discussion group. And that one thing after the next turned into a call to ministry. And through Emerson Theological Institute, I started my training, and we opened the Satya Center for Conscious Living in 2009. And that went along and grew to be a medium-sized church and congregation until COVID, when I was actually sharing time between Big Bear Lake and Northern Utah. And I was senior minister at both churches. And so I would do 2 Sundays in Big Bear and then drive 12 hours and do 2 Sundays in Utah at Satya. And so I would go back and forth. And that was right before COVID. And then COVID hit, everything shut down. And so I've taken my ministry in a different direction. I no longer do pulpit ministry. I've always had an online presence. So I do my Sunday message. During COVID, my husband and I actually sold our house, gave away all of our possessions, and took to the road in our camper van called Om Shanti Home. And we took off for a year, and I would do my Sunday talk on the road, and that would be about half an hour. And then eventually we came home back to Utah. I have 2 children and 3 granddaughters here, and moved back here and started doing my podcast, which you mentioned, Reverend Jeff, which is called Growing Edge Live, and a meditation, which is called Realizing Wholeness. And I do that Mondays. I do the Growing Edge Live, and then on Wednesdays I do Realizing Wholeness. And that's really become my ministry, part of my ministry, I should say. And I lead a women's group. That's an in-person and I do that once a month here in Ogden. Still have our Satya offices, and I'm sort of keeping a placeholder to see what might want to happen. But for now, taking a step back from pulpit ministry was what I needed. And I do miss being a part of a regular church community, but not enough to want to do that again. And and we can get into some of the other things that I do, but that's how I found New Thought. It was an answer to me at the time to a prayer that I didn't know that I was speaking. And it supported me in understanding more deeply who I am. And I love that you talk so often about omnipresence. I feel omnipresence, omnipotence, omniscience is how I feel about life and about being a part of everything. And it's a way for me to feel connected to people, to nature, to the art I do, and the communities I am involved in. And so, yeah.
So, and what I find interesting, as I was doing some research on you, and maybe people out there haven't, done the kind of research, but just to let people know, Satya is a Sanskrit word which means truth, and that is an awesome name that you chose for your center. So I'm sure that that is, well, it's the essence of what we all teach in all of the New Thought branches, is we teach the truth. And the truth is that there is only the one, and we're expressing it each and every day, and we are one with one another because we're one with it. So what better truth than that? So
yeah, we chose that name because it felt really kind of mysterious, having a Sanskrit word. It definitely was we scratched our heads, our board of directors, for a while, because a lot of people would find us thinking we were a yoga center. It doesn't say in their New Thought anywhere, but that in a weird way drew people in because it didn't pigeonhole or it didn't exclude anyone. And having that word Satya, or higher truth, it feels very inclusive and curious.
Well, I will tell you, when I went looking for more information, I typed into Google Satya Center, and the first thing that came up was a crystal store with yoga services and Reiki and things of that nature. So I had to do a little bit more digging to find you, but it's all good because it's all God. So
I agree.
You have you do a lot of art, and it's beautiful art. AllisonJBenjamin.com/art if people want to see that. It's really amazing. I only recently discovered it. And we don't do that sort of art at Sunshine Cathedral. We have a performing arts series. And I always tell people when I welcome people into the space for these various shows, sometimes comedy, sometimes music, sometimes drag artistry, whatever. One time there was an erotic circus even. We had whoever wants to use our space, we just bring them in. But I always tell people that whenever we get together, whenever we gather together to have joy, to love, to be ourselves, to rest, that we are experiencing something divine. We're experiencing something sacred. So you may or may not show up on Sundays, but you are still having a sacred moment in a sacred community. And so, but that's about performance. That's about gathering. That's about people together. I'm wondering how that is true for visual art, that you experience sort of individually and one at a time, but then you can take it home and have it all the time, or whatever. So just how is it that art is in itself a ministry, no matter what the art is?
Mm-hmm. Well, I can speak to how I see my art as a ministry, but I also do think that art in general, theatre arts, music, flower arranging. I mean, there's so many beautiful ways that we can express ourselves through art. And for me, it's a ministry in so many ways. I feel like an artist brings the invisible into time and space. And so when I'm in my creative process, which I think is how we are showing up as the divine, or as our God self, is we're being creative, whether it be with our art or our words or our cooking or our parenting or whatever we're doing, we're bringing that creative energy in. And so for me, it is like a sacred experience to actually paint. And so it feels like a lot of people talk about being in the zone if they're doing sports or whatever, and time disappears and you're just so present in the omnipresence that you're so present. There's not a lot of, stuff going on except what you're doing or where you are. And so for me, painting gives me a very, tangible feeling of God, of the divine. And then as far as it being a ministry, I do art and soul play shops. So I bring people that don't paint, that haven't tried that, into a safe place where I include metaphysical, New Thought teachings and principles and meditation with expressions of symbols. And so that's a way people can connect and expand their experience, and include beauty into that. But what I've really been loving lately is creating mandalas. And I see a mandala as a visual representation of a prayer. And so I include symbols of the elements, let's say, earth, air, fire, light, water, ether, those 5 elements. And I will paint them into a mandala that can be a gift for someone, or I could do a gallery show of a series of them. And each one takes you deeply into whatever the theme is, put it on your altar, or use it as a meditation tool to take you more deeply in. And as I've done this over, the years, I've found that art can take you somewhere. I've got this one piece that I painted, and it seems like whenever I'm in a place, when I'm struggling or when I need to, move out of my worries, I can spend time with my art, and it will actually speak to me, not in a voice, but in a way where I feel connected to something beyond what's happening currently. It's almost like a portal. A painting that I painted, let's say 10 years ago, if I'm observing that or meditating on that, can take me somewhere that's outside of what's going on, the struggle, the challenge, whatever it is, to a dimension of myself, that 10-year ago part of me, or that part of me that has already lived this life, that this physical presence, this higher self, that it feels very soothing, in that it feels like there's something inside me, a deeper wisdom, God, an essential self that I can feel when I'm engaged in viewing art, not just my art, but art in general. So, as you're hearing me talk, I am a deep thinker. I like the deep spiritual experience. And so my art, bringing people into finding their own creativity, their own connection to the divine through that, is so delightful for me. And I have such an amazing opportunity to be able to share my art through greeting cards and my classes and paintings, that I feel like it always ends up where it needs to be. So I don't know who's going to buy my art or who's going to receive it as a gift, but I know and I hope that it is a blessing to whomever experiences it and allows it to take them to that higher space, to have a deeper connection to the divine.
Wonderful, wonderful. It's so inspiring to hear that, and I can feel it. And I recognize that you're pouring your creative energy, your love energy into your creation, the outcome or the manifestation of your creation. I'm curious, how and when did you discover your artistic ability?
Well, my dad was an artist,
Mm.
and he painted, and he also was a builder. So he built our home, and he did amazing woodwork. He would collect wood from all over the world and make bowls or lamp stands or just about anything. He made my little baby sister a rocking swan. My dad was a rower on the River Thames, and so he was very passionate about creating things out of natural objects. And I think that he never told me what to do or how to do it. My dad was someone that just kind of left me to myself. But watching him and seeing him create, I think I either inherited that or just picked it up by osmosis. And I've always been a doodler, a drawer. If you could find one of my books from school when I was in boarding school, when I was a little girl, you'd probably see every margin filled with, pictures of something or other. And when I moved to this country when I was 14, I took art in high school. And that's where I really started developing my style. And I've never been formally trained. I feel like it's something that's flowing through me. It's something I have to do. Like it's like a musician, I think, must feel. Like there's things inside that have to come out and be expressed. Because like you said, it's the way I share my love, the way I share myself most authentically. I'm rather an introvert and not very social. And so this is a way I feel I make connections and express myself.
Very nice. Thank you. Thank you.
That's great. Well, look at the time. Can you stand it already? It always flies by. I don't know how it happens. We're not quite done yet, but we're getting so close. So let's take one little break here. We are Divine Science Everywhere. We're talking with the Reverend Dr. Ali Benjamin, and we are here at New Thought Media Network.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
Welcome back to Divine Science Everywhere.
I have to say, seeing Satya Center come up on that list of sponsors, every time we're on here, and every time I watch one of the other programs, it really does something to me, because I'm thinking to myself, not only is she putting out her own work, but the dues that come along with being a sponsor enable the rest of us to do what we do as well. We're all sharing in each other's ministry. So thank you for sharing with ours and letting us share in with yours.
Well, thank you for sharing. Yeah, it's wonderful to be a part of this New Thought Media Network and support each other's ministries.
It is. I love it. While you're talking, well, Reverend Joy's leading us in the meditation, and you're telling us your stories. We're thinking about your art, and I even snuck over and looked at some more. They're just so beautiful. While this is happening, right outside my window here, my neighbor is cutting the lawn. And so I'm smelling all this amazing grass fragrance. Like, this is a spirit-filled, like, this is just an amazing hour right now. Now, I almost want to say, well, you don't have to prepare a lesson every week, but that's not even true, is it? Because you've got your 2 shows and you've got your art. So you're always really sharing spirit in some sort of way, or truth, or lesson. But you do have a pulpit right now. It's an international, global, it's not even limited by the clock pulpit. So it's for this global, timeless audience. What is something you want all of us to know?
There's so much out on the internet these days, so many ways that we can get spiritually fed. And I know that our shows both air on YouTube and Facebook and other social media platforms. I love that. I love that New Thought has gone mainstream. Mm-hmm. And I think we all have developed our message, our ministries through the internet, over the last few years. I definitely use social media to prepare memes. My art, Her Wings Appeared, is about spiritual awakening and transcending, things that are going on in our lives, troubles and challenges. And so I would just encourage people to keep searching and finding the truth, satya, unity, divine science, New Thought, and all the other faiths, philosophies, and ways of life that are out there now, so easily accessible, and being fed that way. But it's so important to connect with people too. And I encourage everyone that's got too used to finding it online to also find a community where you can really put your love into action and to share your joy, your truth with others. That I always think we're always showing up as an answer to someone's prayer, just like your shirt today, Reverend Jeff. It is a message for someone, and when we can show up in person, I think that's really important too. So it's a both and, online and in person.
That's right.
Everything is everything. And now Reverend Joy has to do some housekeeping and lead us out for this week. Of course, we'll be right back in 7 days.
Oh, yes. This
is our 27th show, right? We've passed the 6-month mark today.
It's amazing. Just amazing.
Didn't we just start like a week or two ago? But here we are.
I know. It's just, I just so look forward to it every single week.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
It's been a joy.
Grateful. Jeff, would you like to talk about our next week's guest?
Oh, thank you. That was a surprise. I wasn't expecting that. When I started out, and we can delve more into this next week. When I started out in my journey discovering New Thought, one of the people who reached out to me and offered to be a mentor and a friend and a support was the Reverend Linda Finley. And Linda right now currently is ministering in Oregon. But she has been one of my staunchest supporters since I launched myself into New Thought. I flung myself into it with abandon, and she has always been there to lift me up whenever I needed it, to support me, whatever. She is my dear friend and my teacher, and I can't say enough nice things about her. And she is doing next week's show as a gift to me, because next Saturday, not Friday when we're doing the show, but next Saturday is my birthday. So Linda's being here is going to be my birthday gift.
Nice.
So we are looking forward to talking with Reverend Linda Finley from Centers for Spiritual Living next week, right here on your New Thought Media Network. So yeah, come see Divine Science Everywhere.
And then the following week, October 31st, Reverend Dr. Paul Hoyt will be with us. And so that will be a great show. So this is Divine Science Everywhere on New Thought Media Network. We're so grateful that you're with us today, and please like and share and just keep coming back.
Absolutely.
All right. And remember that Divine Science is in all, through all, and as all on New Thought Media Network.
Bye, y'all. Thank you again, Dr. Allie. We love you.
Thank you. Love you too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.